Many of you have asked for tips on making masks. In particular, how do you blur out someone's face? How do you make that blur move with the person who's moving? How do you highlight something within the frame? All of those are done with the Masks tool. Let's go over how you use that. First, come down here to Effects, then Video Filters, and then scroll on down to Mask. Grab the mask and lay it down on the clip. So let's say we're blurring out this face. It's on our clip. Over here in our information pane, we have masks. Let's double click it. That pulls up this window. First thing you want to do, check this box over here, and it will check all of its sub boxes and all of the boxes within there. This is to set up our keyframes. With the cursor all the way at the beginning of the clip, let's set a whole set of keyframes. Up here, you can select either a rectangle or square shape drawing tool or an ellipse drawing tool for a circle or oval shape. Because we're blurring out a face, we're going to go with this one. And then we just kind of drag it over the person's face, make it the size you want, and the shape you want. You can go thin, you can go fat, you can go or long, you can go circular, whichever works for you. We're going to go with about this. And so far, if you look at the clip, it doesn't look any different. What we need to do is set an effect for inside or outside of this circle that we just made. Now, if we're blurring out someone's face, we want to set an effect inside. So we click Filter. We have opacity at 100% and strength at 100%. That means that for opacity, if you set it at 50%, then the original video, 50% of it would show through, whereas the other 50% would be your filter. Strength is similar to that. It adjusts the strength of the effect that you're putting out. And of course, that varies depending on which filter you apply. So with filter checked, we're going to come over here to this little folder to select filter. Now in your effects, I already have a preset called full blur, which is the blur effect cranked up all the way. But if you don't have that, let's do this. Click on the video filters, and then you can scroll down and apply any of these filters that you want. But since we're blurring out someone's face, there's two main filters that you would probably want to use. The first is blur. The other would be mosaic, this one down here. Let's select mosaic. Now that we have that selected, we need to adjust the parameters of that filter. So set up filter, we want to click right here. So with mosaic, you can adjust the block size. You know, when you see someone who's kind of quote unquote pixeled out, that's what this is. And you can adjust the size of those pixels here. So let's leave it at its preset, 7, block pattern plane. We'll click OK. And it doesn't look very different here. But if we move this, check this out. The face is pixeled out. So let's click OK. And let's hit play on the clip. You'll notice a problem. The filter doesn't move. So it doesn't do any good to pixel out someone's face if they're going to move right out of the pixel. So what we need to do is adjust the keyframes. Double click on mask. Here is our first set of keyframes. Now that we've made a shape, you'll notice that there are some parameters that don't have keyframe markers, and that's shape. So check this box, and that will check all the boxes below it. Now, set keyframes. We've done that. So as we move the cursor, what we want to do is kind of follow the face. So we have the circle around the face here, and we're still good here, but right about here he starts to move. So set some keyframes. Okay, he's moved. So let's drag this circle over to where he's moved. Now, is you see as we go from this set of keyframes to this one, watch what happens to the circle. It follows. We'll keep dragging it. Okay, he's staying in about that position. Okay, he's shifting a little. So right before he starts to shift, right here, we'll set a new batch of keyframes. Drag the cursor. Okay, he's shifted to here. And he stopped moving, so we're going to set some more keyframes. And now we will drag the circle over there. We'll keep pulling the cursor around. He's moved a little bit more, so we're going to drag the circle. You don't even have to set the keyframes. If you just move the circle, that will create the keyframes. We'll keep dragging the cursor. He's pretty steady. We're good. We're good. Oh, he's going to start moving this way now. So right when he starts to move, which would be about here, we will set some keyframes, and then we'll drag the cursor to where he stopped moving, which is right about here, and we'll drag the cursor over there. And it creates a set of keyframes. Now, you can also make the circle larger and smaller as you set new keyframes. So for example, say we wanted to, he's moved again, we'll move it right here, and say we want to make this circle a little bit smaller, we can adjust the circle size, recenter it over his face, and notice how the circle gets smaller as we go between these two batches of keyframes. We'll keep dragging the cursor. He's pretty steady. He's pretty steady. Okay, he's moving again, so when he starts to move out of here, we'll set some keyframes. We'll drag it a little bit more. And he's still going, still going. So now we will drag this over here. And when there's a large patch of motion, just kind of follow it with the cursor and make sure that the circle follows. Because a person might speed up or slow down, and the path between the two keyframes might not match the speed of that person. So you may have to add additional keyframes in between. But this looks like it tracks pretty well. So let's click OK, and let's watch it and see how we did. Yep, follows him pretty well. Say you don't want to use mosaic, say you'd rather use blur. Double click on the mask filter. Click on the select filter button. Select blur. Click OK. Adjust the parameters with setup filter. And you can adjust the amount of blur. Let's take it to about 50 here. Check the box that says soft. Now over here where it says width, you can set the number of pixels that create the border or the width of the effect. So right now it's at 0. It's a super hard line. 1 pixel's blurred, the pixel next to it is not blurred. So let's put in 10 pixels and see how that looks. Alright, now you can see there's the blur on the face. We'll double click it. You notice that it's a little softer on the edge. We'll hit play. And it's a little bit softer than if there were no edge. Okay, say you've got more than one person or more than one thing that you want to blur out. Here's an easy way to do that. Once you've made one, select the mask and select copy. Now you've got two. You can't really tell much of a difference because it's literally the exact same thing. But you can drag this one somewhere else. Like say this was a person's face right here. We could drag it here and it would blur out this flag on this mailbox. Now the problem is, as you drag your cursor, it's going to go back to this. So we would want to set all new keyframes by deleting out these keyframes, and it'll stay parked right there. We'll hit OK, and you'll notice that as we hit play, we've got one blur here and one blur here. If you want it to be a different size, double click that mask and you could, make it bigger or smaller. You could even delete it, select a different drawing tool, Place it. We're going to place it over the whole mailbox. Now when we hit OK, we've got a nice rectangular blur over this mailbox. Let's select that effect again. Say we want to make it a bigger width of blur. Let's make it 50 pixels. Now the blur is more gradual. Maybe we want to make the blur more blur. We'll adjust the parameter. Let's crank it up all the way to 100. And as you can see, more blur. Let's copy that effect and make a third blur. Let me show you something else. Double click this new one. Let's go ahead and delete this box altogether and select this drawing path. Now you can make your own shape. Say I wanted to blur out whatever these things are here. Phone and cable and internet. Little portal things. We can make a little shape around these things by setting little markers. When you come to a place where you want to stop, all you do is click your mouse and then connect the dots, and we have the same parameters as we did for that previous effect. So we've got blur at 100, we've got width at 50. Check this out. We'll hit OK, and now we've blurred out this. All right, but say we want to do the opposite thing. Say we want to highlight something within a clip. Like, let's say we want to follow his hand as he plays bass here. What will we do? All right, well, just like before, we would go to Effects. We'd apply a mask. Now, when you want to highlight something within a clip, you want to either make an effect inside of your mask or make an effect outside of your mask, or maybe both. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Double click mask. It brings us to this window. We'll start at the very beginning here. We'll select our ellipse drawing tool, and we'll make an ellipse around his hand. Now, we want to set our keyframes by checking this box, dropping a batch of keyframes right through here, and then we're going to follow his hand slowly but surely. Now, as we drag the cursor through there, the little circle follows his hand. That's good. But now we need to apply some effects. So what should we do? Let's do an outside effect. We'll select Filter. We'll click this box. Let's make everything around his hand darker. So if we select Video Filters, Color Correction, Color Balance. Okay. Now we adjust the parameters here. Let's bring the brightness way down. Let's bring the chroma or color saturation way down. We'll bring the brightness down, the contrast down. We've got the chroma down. Let's hit OK and see how this looks. We'll go to the beginning of the clip, go full screen, hit play, and the mask follows his hands around. It's not perfect. You probably want to tweak it a little bit there. But to make it stand out a little bit more, double-click Mask. And check this out. We can add a color ring around it by selecting the color box. We'll make the width 15 pixels. And we'll make the color bright yellow. You can pick any of these colors. We'll go with yellow. Then we hit OK. And let's take a look at our clip now. So now you've got a colored ring there that sort of follows the hand around in our mask. And like I said, you could kind of tighten up the keyframes to make it match a little bit better. but that's how you would use that. Let's say you're writing the story and you want to transition from the mask to no mask. So we'll hit play here. Young Oscar Schmidt learned to play bass as a child. Stop. We'll cut the clip right here. In the clip where we don't want the mask, we will turn the mask off or delete it. And then we'll put a transition between these two clips, like so. So now the mask pops up. So, something like this. Young Oscar Schmidt learned to play the bass guitar as a child, and as we watch his hands fly up and down the fretboard, you can see that he is a virtuoso. Something like that. And you can kind of make the mask pop up this way. That's an easy way to do it. There are other ways to do it. For example, if you double click the mask clip, you can do that with these keyframes by setting a set of keyframes, a batch of keyframes, putting the strength at 0, another batch, making the strength 100. That will make the effect seem to appear on the screen, but I think that this way is easier. There is a ton of things that you can use the mask filter for. I've only gone over about 2% of them because this is what you'll probably use the most, blurring things out or highlighting things within your frame. But feel free to experiment with it, and if you have any cool tips, share them with the group.